when we go in there to vote.
Yeah, like
DR section.
Yeah, so like the DR sections, how they work, because all you guys see just us, talking. So it looks like we're all these naturally dynamic speakers talking in the diary room, or some of us yelling in the diary room. Which, side note, by the way, I was super happy this time around that I wasn't the loudest person in the DR. But I will say this, like, when I was watching it the second time around, it was really painful. And I love Joey's hilarious. Like, when his DRs came on, I'm like, I can't even take this. And like, I'm pretty loud myself. But in terms of like DR involvement, there was one time I really got mad. Actually twice. And for the young people here, I flashed the camera as my index finger, not really my index finger one time, because they called me out for whispering and I didn't have my microphone on. But anyways, back to the DR question. They don't really, they ask you questions, but they don't, all they do is ask questions. They don't say, well, why don't you think this? They just ask you questions, and if you say something that's intriguing to them, they'll say, well, why do you think that? The only thing, and I tweeted about this today, the only thing that was really helpful to me in the DR was that before I went into solitary confinement, I was an emotional wreck. I was crying, and one of the DR producers from season 10 is now an executive producer, and executive producers, they don't do DRs, they're kind of above that. And I went in, the normal DR person's there, I'm like, if you're going to get me crying in the DR, you better get my boy from season 10 to come down to his throne and do this. So he came down, and I had a really good relationship with him, so I was real emotional, so that helped me kind of through that, but it didn't he wasn't hey, maybe if you go in there and plan the funeral, you can get out of this. It was just more of a comfortable thing, but they don't manipulate it all, trust me, entering in the house, I was number one thinking, all right, how does it always work out perfectly where they get good ratings, but they don't do anything like that? Because I would honestly tell you. The other thing that kind of got me a little upset once, but it was just me being paranoid, was I had to convince Jen to do something, and Jen's DRs were 5 or 10 minutes long. And right when I needed her to do something, they called her in for a DR, and she was in there for 40 or 50 minutes. And I went in after, and I reamed them. And then after I sat back, because one of the things, it's the producers put up with a lot of stuff from us, and I try not to complain, because one day when you guys get the Big Brother house, you guys are really watching, it's such a privilege. And to me, it's I never wanted to be a complainer. So after I vented on them, I kind of went back in and said, you know what, sorry, I got a little paranoid. But yeah, it's just to me, it's such an honor and privilege to play the game. That's why I really tried to never complain about how boring it was, because that's when kind of the fun things happen. You guys watch the live feed salsa bones and do all the crazy fun things when you go sport. But how are we doing on time? Does anyone know?